Hail, weary podcast traveler and well met. I see your adventure through the depths of the internet has led you here to sliding into the DMs. Now, this is not a podcast for the dirty boys, as the name implies, but rather a D&D advice and creative concepts podcast where these three nerds take your questions, suggestions, and pop culture influences to turn them into playable content, making goofs all along the way. This show is for everyone, from level 1 adventurers just stepping into the realm of D&D to the level 19 Dragon Slayer. Their aim is to help both players and DMs alike. Even Gary Gygax needed help sometimes. Just ask Dave Arneson. So step into our tavern, take off your cloak of Elvenkind, and spend some time sliding into the DMs.
Well met, adventurer. I am inquiring if you have seen 3 males wanted for crimes of passion. The boyos are considered highly dangerous. If you do meet these men, please be careful as they are armed with cunning, creativity and imagination. Stay alert, stay armed, and stay safe. Roll for initiative.
17.
18.
11.
Nice. That means wait, hold on.
Nope. Nice.
Aw,
Don't snake it away
man.
from me. Don't snake it away from me.
Again.
Yeah, that's right. Don't even try, buddy. I'm the initiative lord, okay?
Okay, Lord.
You can just call me Initiative Jesus from now on. Well, I am Trevor. I am your continuity conductor / initiative genius. And the one that's not good at initiative, go ahead.
I am Bruce, the mad scientist, and who's that guy who betrayed Jesus? I'm that guy.
Judas.
Judas. I'm the Judas of dice rolls.
And I guess I'm the biggest loser. My name's Cameron. I'm bored as noodles. And I'm the noob.
So I am your player perspective mostly. I've DM'd a few games, but mostly I'm here as a player perspective. Bruce is our DM perspective on topics.
Forever DM.
And forever DM. He can never get away from it.
Nope.
Cameron is our new player perspective, so he helps us when we start talking at a level that is going to go over some people's heads. Cameron's going to stop us and be like, hey,
that went over my head.
What did you just say?
What do you mean by roll?
So what is initiative exactly?
Yeah, so welcome to tonight's show. Thank you for joining us on Sliding into the DMs. Trevor, you rolled the highest, so therefore you have to decide where we go first.
All right. So I was trolling forums, as I normally do, and I did find a decent forum post that I think we can all dive into, especially Bruce's little creative mind.
That's me.
Yeah, and Cameron as well, very creative on TikTok. You see some of his creative videos and the way his mind works.
If you only saw him, how he was dressed when he started this call, and then how he slowly got undressed while this call was going on, you would understand that.
You would get it. But let me go ahead and read you this forum post.
All right.
So this forum question comes from Sang Meng. It says, "Fix the afterlife, looking for suggestions on my setting. So my players are heading to a new homebrew setting tentatively called the Haunted Seas. The main hook is that there is a barrier of teleportation and even detection covering the planet. And this barrier also interferes with souls moving to the afterlife. It turns out that is bad. So the party is starting on 13th level and is being teleported in to fix it, with the understanding that the other side of the barrier is unknown and punching through it is a one-time thing, so there is no help coming. But I don't know what to put in the setting to reflect trapped souls, either story-wise or mechanically. Just vague idea of ghosts everywhere. And there's a lot of ocean, hence the name. Any suggestions?"
Interesting. So I wonder if there is something they're missing here, because there's a lot of specters and spooks in the 5th edition, and I'm wondering if some of those may provide what they're kind of asking for there, instead of just having just ghosts everywhere. What other kind of creatures and stuff they can have, because my thought is like, if the souls are kind of stuck here in purgatory, don't you think that they would slowly kind of petrify or like mutate and turn into different stuff?
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking they would start to degrade a little bit or mutate. The first thing that came to my mind is thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean on Davy Jones' boat when,
Oh, yeah.
they're not allowed to move on. They have to stay on Davy Jones' boat, and they slowly, over time, actually just become part of the ship.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that, where their specter form would start to transform and degrade.
That fits that theme like perfectly.
You said lots of ocean, correct?
Yes.
My
Lots of ocean
first
is what I
thought
said.
was alien mermaid demons. I don't know why. That just came to my brain.
Ooh.
Hit me with some more of it. Keep going. Explain.
Like, just that these, as you were saying, these souls are trapped and they're sort of degrading into a thing, and there's a lot of ocean. So they could potentially take on a form that is water related in terms of like some kind of a demonic creature that is also mermaidish, I guess. And it's a planet, so alien mermaid demons. First thing came into my mind. I was like, ooh, like Doom in a way.
I like that.
I almost think there would be like some demonic sirens,
Right.
Siren
yeah.
specters. Their form of their specter has degraded to like what Cameron's saying, like almost mermaid-like. But their specter voice acts as a siren. It can call them in. And then once it does, they're like super demonic. They open their mouth and they have all these gnarly teeth and this tongue that's just crazy. And their face changes a little bit from this pretty siren face to like
a meat
this
weasel.
gnarly
Hollowed
devil
out.
demon.
Yeah.
And then they gotta fight them off like groves at a time.
Do y'all know what a meat weasel is?
It's just not a sex joke, is it?
No, it's not a sex joke. It's not.
Okay.
It's like a lamprey kind of monster creature with like suction teeth kind of thing.
Ooh, I do like that. So I kind of like the idea that yes, there are a bunch of spirits and ghosts and ghostly spirits and spirity ghosts around, but I also like the idea that there is still those beings in their physical bodies, but their physical bodies are just slowly being corrupted. So they actually have something physical there that they have to contend with as well. Because I don't know what the whole mission is once they get there or how the mission is going to play out. Because it did say something about how they have to fix this world and, get it into the right stance as, like letting souls go and letting people teleport in and all that stuff. Basically, the cure of this world or this realm. But I don't know if that means that they're also going to be combative with the locals. I imagine so because it's D&D. I can imagine these souls, because they're not able to go anywhere else, that they're also inclined to inhabit the body that they were in, right? But because of this weird relationship that souls have to this world, that, like we said before, they're just kind of mutating those bodies. So I think you could easily go find stats for like, undead, have like a undead horde shambling across the valleys or whatever it is, and have like you said, demonic presences there. Maybe even demons and lesser demons that have teleported in to collect souls but are unable to get back out. So now you have like these hyper powerful demons and devils and stuff from the 9 layers of hell and the hell dimensions and stuff. Like that could be really fun to do as well.
And I would think that there'd kind of be both sides of this spirit spectrum, where you're gonna have those nice like Harry Potter style ghosts that are roaming around the castle, nearly headless Nick, that he might float by and like give you some advice, help you, be cool. And then but my thought is basically the longer that they're stuck here in their spectrum form, their mind and everything starts to degrade. So they slowly just start to go insane because they haven't been able to move on. So the ones that go insane are like hyper aggro and just attack on sight. They float around. If you see them, they're going to attack you. Just crazy demonic almost. But I think you're going to have a mixture of both. So it's just going to be like people that have, kind of recently died are going to be, more of themselves as they were in the real world before they died. But then the older souls that have been trapped there for a long time are going to be insane.
Yeah, I could see that. As you were talking, I was kind of thinking of some fun little tropes that you could throw into this game, and I think a ocean-themed headless horseman would be really fun. So instead of him riding a horse, he's riding like a giant seahorse.
Yes.
And, instead of him being like a night rider, he's like one of those old school scuba divers with the big heavy suits.
Yes.
And his head comes off and he throws it at people for like crazy bludgeoning damage and stuff like that. Some other ones you can do is like, you can have towns. So I imagine everything is just cast in gloom. Like every movie that depicts like London and England and Paris and stuff during like the 1800s, of it just being like everything's in grayscale. There's very little color. The only color you really see is brown. Like everything is just totally overcast, totally gloomy, like really depressing almost. So you have like these little cities and towns and stuff of living who have these walls erected to protect them from the undead and unfriendly of this realm. And like in this city, you can have like one of my favorite stories of well, this sounds really bad, but one of my favorite stories of a serial killer from back in like the 1800s and stuff was a guy named Spring Hill Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And he was this being that kind of stalked the city and had all these crazy mechanical like attachments and stuff, because he was said to be able to jump 10 to 15 feet straight up in the air because he had these weird springy boots. And then he also would like tear into his victims with these crazy metallic claws. And it was said that he had like eyes that would glow like green fire, and he was able to breathe flame on you and all this stuff. And I think that'd be really kind of neat to throw into a town, is like this guy who was an artificer in his original life, but when they became stuck in this realm, he started to lose it a little bit. But that's because he actually died, and his spirit is inhabiting his body, but his spirit is slowly going mad because he can't get out. And so he's trying to take people with him, or trying to figure out, what's going to be the catalyst that really sends them to the other side, or whatever it is. And he does that by killing a bunch of people. And so this could be like a mystery they have to go solve and find out who is Spring Hill Jack and how to either contain him or properly get rid of him and all this other stuff. And he could slowly be kind of turning into a demon, but with all the artificer stuff, and like literally make him Spring Hill Jack.
I like it. Another thought that popped into my head when you were saying that is like serial killers, right? Like because they died, but they're still there, they can still wreak havoc and be crazy serial killers. I get the total vibe of Full Metal Alchemist when what's his name, Bill, the butcher guy that is in a suit of armor, just like one of the brothers.
Yep.
And he was a crazy psycho serial killer, but they trapped his soul in that suit of armor. Well, same idea, minus trapping his soul in a suit of armor, and he's just trapped in this world. And in that,
he's in a Warforged.
Yeah. And he was looking, he also, same thing, he wanted his body back, and he was trying to find it, and then he finally found it, and it was so degraded and messed up, he couldn't take it back. Yeah. So that made him go even more crazy,
That could be really fun.
So fun stuff to mess with.
I like
there
that
too.
a lot. So as far as the look and feel of the world, I think that gloomy, like constantly foggy, the sun when it rises almost appears as if it's a moon because of how thick the fog or the cloud cover is. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's definitely a day and night, but the day is so obscured and so gloomy that it doesn't really make a difference between the two of them. I think just, every terrain that you can think of, because it is a whole realm. I like the idea of like, gloom and gore and just like really downtrodden, and like honestly the best word I can think of to describe the way this world should look is depressing. Like just everything's just depressing. It's almost as if when this cataclysm happened to kind of lock this world in, it was just before fall. And then fall came, but because now all the spirits are unable to get out, like everything is just in a perpetual winter. Like all the trees don't have leaves on them except for specific ones, and even those just look like nasty and messed up, and they're just very gloomy, sad, depressing world.
Very Underworld-esque.
Yes.
Underworld-esque
like
mixed with like haunted graveyard feel.
Yeah.
And Another thought I had too was magic casters that die. I'd say there's like a higher probability of them becoming liches. So liches would be a fun thing to throw in the world too, that they have to fight off liches.
I like that too. So. Liches, and it'd be so easy to gather an undead army. Yeah, just like you just put a poster up on a board, and then like, hey, I'm undead, let's go. Instead of having to resurrect them all, you just put up a cattle call, and they all come running.
Here's my Craigslist ad.
Exactly. So hopefully that helped.
Like I said, the only thing about putting up on a job board or something looking for an undead army is that I feel like a lot of them, their minds would so be gone that they wouldn't think or look at, like I said, their past reason, their past understanding and basic thought. So they're not looking for jobs. They're not, moseying around the town. They're just like in full on aggro attack mode all the time, floating around by themselves.
What I was doing was trying to tell a joke.
What?
That's okay.
What's a joke?
So a joke is like when you say something that isn't exactly true, but it's meant to be humorous. Like it's supposed to it's supposed to be so not true that it's kind of funny in that way.
Like me saying a Craigslist ad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Craigslist is like this website run by this guy named Craig. And
does he have a list?
He posts his Christmas list every year.
Yeah, he posts his Christmas list every year.
And people send him things.
Sometimes it was need dirt removed. Or it had, I need help building a deck.
Free bricks.
Does anyone have a barbecue? It was all kind of that kind of stuff. That's what his Christmas list was. Anyways, alright, what's next? I have kind of an idea.
Hit me.
If you guys would join me.
Hit me. Well, don't.
Of course.
Don't actually hit me, but let me know your idea.
If I could hit you from here, everyone in the world should be scared.
If you could reach me from California to Alaska, yes.
Yes. So if you'll join me over here, bum bum, bum bum, brrrr, bum. And Bruce's Dumb Movie, Good Campaign. This is the corner of the show where we take a movie that I don't particularly care for and we turn it into a game hook or a plot line or side quest, whatever it is. And today's movie is the 2017 5.6 stars rated Gnome Alone. This is a Canadian animated film starring your favorite little monsters from every pun-based movie that you can think of, where gnome is applicable. And it is Gnome Alone. And here's a brief plot summary that doesn't cover half of it that I'm gonna have to go in and explain more.
Is this made by the same people that made Romeo and Juliet?
I believe the one and the same.
Okay.
Also, Sherlock Gnomes, and hold on, I'm sure there's a list here of the other ones they've made. Sherlock Gnomes, Romeo and Juliet. There's a list here, but I have to pay to see the rest of them, and I don't want to do that. So this one, it says, when Chloe discovers that her new home's garden gnomes are not what they seem, she must decide between the pursuit of a desired high school life and taking up the fight against the Trogs. Now, what this doesn't tell you is the gnomes are actually sentient creatures rather than just your standard everyday porcelain garden gnomes, and they've been tasked with protecting the world from the evil and ever hungry Trogs. And Trogs are these adorable little bowling ball looking things. They're purple in color. And they just have a ravenous hunger. And if it weren't for these garden gnomes and their special crystal that kind of helps seal the barrier between the Trogs' dimension and their own, the Trogs would devour the world. Chloe moves into the house where they have set up base, finds the crystal and thinks it's cool, takes it to school, meets a popular girl. A popular girl likes her because she has this cool little gem, asks her if she can borrow the gem, and then promptly loses it and or throws it away. shit hits the fan, Trogs start popping up out of nowhere and just devouring everything in the house, and these gnomes are tasked with sending them back to their dimension, their portal, whatever it is. She is kind of off and on trying to go and collect this crystal to help seal the portal, but by the time she gets it back, it's too late. And the big mega Trog comes out, which is just like 40 trillion of these little Trogs put together, and it starts to devour the world. That's when she finds out that her crutch the entire movie, which was her cell phone, can be attached to the crystal, thrown at the beast, exploded, and take the beast back to its own dimension and permanently seal the portal by which they were traveling. So, did you guys get all that? That track?
Got
Makes
it all?
sense?
I've seen this movie, actually.
It's not bad after you watch it the 40,000th time when your kids only want to watch that for a while. But it's also not great. It's really easy to tell what's going to happen next. It's definitely a low-budget film. Let me see how much it was spent on it.
Well, the funny thing is, I expected so much more of it with the cast that they
Right.
had. With some of the members of the cast they had, I was like, this could probably be good.
Yeah.
So I played it, and I was like, this is not very good.
Josh
But
Peck,
it's also a Netflix
Josh
movie.
Peck, Olivia Holt, Jeff Dunham, David Kosher. Who else is on here? George Lopez.
Those are pretty much the top ones.
Yeah, there's more, but like they have such minor roles you don't really hear from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bruce, where are you? give me a start off of where you're thinking about running with this, and I might be able to take off from there.
Okay, so a start for me. So I was trying to think of how can we get the party into this, because the way that this movie starts is it's this girl who's constantly moving because her mom's work requires them to. And then they move into this house, and she's going to this new school where she's trying to stay connected with the friends from her past school via cell phone and playing, over the phone video games and stuff like that. And all that stuff wouldn't really track with a D&D party. So what I was thinking is play it from the perspective of the popular girl or some NPC hires the group to steal this crystal that this new inheritor of a great fortune has this in their kind of inheritance. It's just a part of what they own now. This person is kind of painted as, a bad egg, a bad seed, whatever you want to say. And so they're like, yeah, this person stole this crystal from me and I need it because it's important for my family and all this other shit. Well, really, she's the bad guy and wants the crystal to help release these Trogs into the world because, maybe she's a dark wizard or witch or something and wants to kind of put the world into uproar so that she can take power in the chaos and then use the crystal to seal it all back up. But the original start off point would be the party being approached by this person who has this woeful story of, this person came in and, inherited all this stuff, but part of what they inherited is actually mine, and it was promised to me by the old owner of this fortune, and I need you guys to go get it for me. So the party is tasked with sneaking in. They have to plan a classic heist where, maybe there's some kind of party going on, and they have to sneak in during the party and try and steal this crystal. But what they don't realize is once they steal the crystal and deliver it to her, literally the moment they're meeting in the tavern and handing her the crystal, all of a sudden they hear screams in the street, and as they run out there, instead of these adorable little Trogs that look like, a purple volleyball with gnashing teeth and, crazy looking eyes, they find, some kind of hell beast, or, like basically crank this movie up to an R-rated movie and, make these monsters like truly terrifying. And I'm sure we can find some D&D monster that would fit, but basically go from there and have them, fight these monsters off and on, because they're coming in waves, and then have them figure out kind of what the story is behind it all. Maybe they interview, or maybe they have a questioning scenario with the new inheritor of this fortune, or whatever it is. I don't know if you guys have any inclination or where you want to go from there, but that's kind of my idea to start it out.
I had a little different idea on starting it out, but I kind of like your idea better, not gonna lie.
Okay. I'll allow it.
But I do want to hear from Bored as Noodles.
Mm-hmm. I had several ideas going through my brain. I do like the way that you have to where they're hired by essentially somebody sort of masquerading as a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Then they become a bad person. But I feel I don't know, there's something missing there. Like, there's a reason that they can't get close to this thing due to, like, maybe some sort of a defense mechanism on this.
Yeah, I think that could be
Crystal's
something you could
location.
do. Like, maybe the previous, like, maybe she really is the new inheritor of this fortune, but the old inheritor, or the old owner of this fortune in this land or whatever, they put some kind of magical warding against this specific, like, maybe she's a lich, but she's taken her human form so that she can hide that she's a lich. And, you know, she's just not powerful enough to, you know, break whatever this ward is. I do like that.
And then maybe like a portal to some sort of an underworldish realm. I know that's very cliche and normal, but could be a thing. And then having to close the portal some mysterious way, get the crystal back in its rightful place, like the movie basically is.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I can't remember.
Think
It's been a long time.
Leave the portal for whatever creature we find to take over the Trog's position. Like, that's a whole separate thing, and then they have to deal with her as well. Kind of like she's the mini,
like a boss.
Yeah, she's the mini boss right before, you know, the big boss, and now they have to fight, you know, this mega Trog, which is whatever combination of creature that we have, and it is, you know, big and scary and gross. I found this thing, and I don't know what it's called, but it looks like a Trog just souped up, and I want to figure out what it is, but there's no link directly to it.
Is it the floating meatball?
No, that's a beholder. That would be broken if there was a bunch of beholders floating around.
That'd be rough. Hey, Bruce.
Yeah, that would be a TPK, you know, day one. What is it?
I had something I thought of too. What if once she got this crystal and the way she was able to open the portal between the two worlds was she actually took the crystal to the underworld, and then to get it back, what if they had to do like a quick journey? They had to go through the portal the opposite way the Trogs are coming, to go down into the underworld, retrieve the crystal, and bring it back to the real world, restored in its rightful place. And then you can almost play the whole underworld scene just like I love to steal from the one of the greatest DMs of all time, Griffin McElroy. No, I'm sorry, that's not a Griffin. That's a Travis.
Oh.
So in the newest campaign, Graduation. So do you remember when in Graduation they were trapped in that room that the demon Gray locked them in? To get out, they had to go through the portal into the underworld, make a mad dash through the underworld, because just being in the underworld messes with your mind.
Makes you go insane, yeah.
Yeah, it makes you go insane. It makes you like they had to, like, it felt like it was burning their skin, all this stuff, and it was like a literal sprint through. I would kind of think that'd be kind of fun just to throw in there too, as a quick side, like a quick, you know, point in the quest, as they find out, hey, this crystal's actually in the underworld. We got to go like smash and grab this thing and get out of there. And someone who's familiar with the underworld kind of warns them, like, hey, this is how it is. Like, down there, you're gonna lose your mind. It's gonna feel like your skin is melting off. It's gonna, you know, all this stuff. So don't spend any more time than X amount of time, because we've talked about during campaigns, it's really good to kind of put time constraints on things and make them act on a timeline to kind of progress the story forward. And I think that would be a fun way of doing that, is like, hey, you only have X amount of time in the underworld before you 100% go completely insane. And even then, you know, you still might go a little crazy just from going down there. Like Clint's character. What's that?
Pick me. So you unwittingly hit on a major plot point of the movie, is these gnomes are protecting this portal because they have to keep the Trogs out. Well, one of the things that happens is sometimes these trogs, if they get you, they will pull you into their realm. And so what I'm thinking is you have the person who originally had all of this money and wealth and this crystal got pulled into the underworld, because there's a big part of the movie where they try and go rescue the dim-witted, comedy relief of Josh Peck's character, Liam, in the movie, because he gets grabbed and pulled into this portal realm.
Uh-huh.
And they have to go in there and get him out so that they can fully seal the portal. So what if we do something similar and say, the original owner of this household and protecting this gem and everything was actually pulled into this realm and has been trying to survive this whole time with all those time constraints and everything, like you said, where, maybe one of his head guards of his household, who was going to be training the new heiress in how to protect the realm and all that stuff, and he meets the party and tells them, he's still alive. He's still there. Like, he's the one that's going to have the secret on how to fix this whole situation. So we're going to send you guys down there to try and, grab him up because he had a crystal on him or some shit like that. Some MacGuffin that they have to go get. And like you said, journey down there with the warning of if you stay down there too long, you're going to go crazy and all this stuff. And if you can't get him out in this time, you get out, because, having you guys with little information is better than, losing everyone who can do anything. And then you have them go in and do that, and then they pop back out and, whatever it is. But I do really like that, and that fits really well. As far as the monsters for this game goes, what do you guys think about this? This is called a Sioux monster. It's a medium monstrosity, and it's chaotic evil. Now, Cameron, tell me this does not already look like a trog. Like that face.
Let's see. Oh, there it is.
You see the face? Like, it totally already looks like a trog. It looks kind of like a zombified monkey thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like really wicked looking. Hollow eyes, just red glowing ember dots for eyes. Hollow nose holes. Jacked up, jagged teeth. It looks like it's got rotting, like, flesh and fur all across it, and giant clawed hands. Like, I think that fits the rated R version of a trog really, really well.
I think that's pretty spot on in terms of, like, because I did while I was sitting here, I did look up the movie again to just jog my memory.
Yeah.
And yes, they do have that kind of crazed, evil smile.
And this thing looks like it could eat a lot of flesh.
Mm-hmm. Like it would just be ravenous.
Yeah, and it's pretty. It's got basically what we would call minion stats, because minions are difficult, but they're difficult in the reason that there's a lot of them. They don't typically have a shit ton of hit points or anything like that. They're normally pretty easy to dispatch, but there's a lot of them usually. And so with only 27 hit points in an armor class of 12, I think that fits the minion class if you are having your party come in at a little bit of a higher level. If you're having them come in at a lower level, you could knock this armor class down to like a 10 and the hit points down to like 17, and you would still have a manageable creature here. It's got multi-attack.
Especially if you
Go ahead.
threw multiple at them at one time.
Oh yeah, there's never just one of them. Maybe in the first scene when they hand off the crystal and they hear this scream out in the streets, like this is the thing you see. There's just one of them. But as soon as they dispatch that one, they turn the corner and there's like 5 or 6 more. And these are really cool because they have multi-attacks, so it makes 2 attacks, one with its bite, one with its claw. It's got a decent bite attack, 1d4 plus 2, which means they roll 1d4 and then they add 2 to it. The claws are 2d4 plus 2. Oh, and it does more damage if it's hanging by its tail, which is kind of creepy. So you could have this bordering a forest or something, and that's where this lady goes, runs, and hides.
Or if it's in the town, they hang from the street lamps or...
Oh, yeah.
Signs.
From
buildings,
like, alleyways and stuff.
Yeah.
Scaffoldings.
Now this has a crazy extra attack here. It says it's got Psychic Crush. The Sioux monster targets one creature it can see within 30 feet of it. The target must succeed a DC 11, which is they have to roll an 11 or higher on their D20 using their Wisdom modifier, or take 17 or 5d6 psychic damage, or be stunned. Which in the movie, the Trogs make this weird screech thing, and normally that like weirds everybody out. So I could see that being that little psychic ability there is like the pack leader of whatever groups you send at them. Only one of them can do it, but they all do it at the same time, and it's like everyone in the group has to make that saving throw or be frightened or take that damage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be really fun. And then, for the final, whenever they find out that you have to have this crystal, or now they have to set off this crystal in some kind of arcane nuke to fully seal the barrier between, and maybe even destroy the Lich in the process, is maybe the Lich combines with one of those, and you just homebrew up a creature that is just crazy huge. Like maybe it's a troll size or a stone giant size, but it's one of those,
Sioux monsters,
and a Lich combined. So you give it a couple spells, and you give it, its massive size and its AC bump and its, HP bump, and then boom, you got yourself a big bad.
I like it.
Yeah, that definitely sounds kind of what I was going to say too, is about something giant to being like the final boss.
Yeah. And it has to be too, because in the movie, this Trog, like these little bowling ball things start to squish together, make this giant, massive Trog thing that tries to eat the house and them inside of it. And they're, on the roof with her cell phone duct taped to the crystal that is supposed to keep the barriers separated and all that. And she ends up yeeting it into its mouth, and then kaboom. And there's just green jelly everywhere. And no one in the neighborhood is any wiser,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think that is a dope one-shot / 6-shooter / sub-campaign.
It would be. I think it'd be fun. I think another thing you would want to play
that
on in, like I said, when we were talking about in the underworld, is I think while they're down there rescuing that guy, they're going to have to make pretty consistent wisdom saving throws.
Yeah.
To not be thralled by the effects of the underworld.
Yeah.
Like, and the longer they're down there, that's the higher the DC gets.
Yeah.
One shitty roll, and you could be kind of screwed up in the mind, kind of like Argo Keen's character.
Yeah.
In Graduation.
Residual effects.
And they were only down there for a quick second, so...
Yeah.
But the longer they're down there, the higher DC gets, and then the worse the effects would be if they fail, because they've been down there X amount of time longer.
Yeah.
So,
like maybe start the DC pretty low, and then as they spend more time down there, you increase it by 2. And so like it slowly gets harder and harder, and then those people who do roll low, you roll on like the madness table or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think
that's what effect they get.
And you step up on the table, like as the longer they've been down there, like if they've only been down there a minute and they filled their first roll, like, okay, well, you have this, it's going to be a small effect. They haven't been down there really long enough to get a full, gnarly, complete lose your mind madness. But, okay, you have, you have a frightened, condition on you, and, after you get back, you're going to have nightmares and you're not going to sleep well. So you're going to have to deal with some exhaustion and stuff from not sleeping.
Yeah.
But if they're down there for a long time and they've been saving their wisdom throws, then finally they fail one. Oh, dude, you're going to start, lose your mind a little bit.
What if you increase the difficulty by saying, like, okay, he's down there and he has a shard of this crystal, so the effects on him are going to be lightened, right?
Yeah.
So what if you create a way of forcing them to separate the party? So you have, if you have a party of 4 players, you have 2 of them who are protecting this room from these trogs that are ever increasingly barraging the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're protecting this room, and you're playing simultaneously of like, okay, we're going to jump back and forth. You have everyone roll initiative. Okay, we're going to jump back and forth between, the scenes as these initiatives hit. and you only have, 2 extra shards of this crystal that can possibly aid these 2 people. So you make the DCs a little bit more manageable, but they still are running out of time because as they get to the other side, they notice that these little crystal shards are withering from the effects of this underworld. And then, that's their timer, that's their count. And so you as the DM decide, okay, in so many rounds, these crystals are going to be gone.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to deal with the effects outright, and the DC is going to be a lot higher. And then you have the people on the outside dealing with trying to protect that room or that area from these trogs or these Sue monsters while all this is going down. But there's like a time dilation thing. So like, in the actual world, they're still dealing with 6-second rounds. But in the Sue monster world or the Sue monster dimension, they're dealing with, for every 1 round to them, it's 6 minutes. 1 round in our world is 6 seconds, but in the Sue monster world, it's 6 minutes. And so they're able to get a lot more stuff done. Maybe they basically get like 2 turns stacked on top of each other to do stuff and interact with things and, use their movement and all that other stuff. But, you're bouncing back and forth and, kind of playing both sides. That way it kind of gives that tension and it gives that cool, like, split world dilemma. Like, I think that'd be really cool.
I think that'd be fun.
Oh, yeah.
And then that way you can also, say that he's still alive down there. So if you do get to him, he's probably only a little bit crazy. Yeah. That's another thing is the guy they saved from the Trog dimension, he is, like, fully batshit insane. But he's still got enough wits to know what his main purpose is. And it's kind of like a funny comic relief part of it. But, I think that could be really good.
I think so.
All right.
I envisioned it in my brain, and it seems like I would enjoy playing it.
I'm honestly thinking now of like, I should have been taking notes during that. Luckily, this is a podcast I can listen to again and write out all the stuff I want to do, and then actually run this as a game, because it's been something I've been thinking about since before we started this podcast. So
that's awesome. All right.
Let's jump to one more question before we do our sign-offs, because I think we're getting kind of close to the end here.
Okay, this is kind of a question that I wanted to go over just because we had gone through a very similar discussion on Friday night in our game about spellcasting time and what, the time of an action is and all that. We can kind of go through a little bit of, our discussion we had with our player and how we explained it to them. But I want to read you this question from the forum that's kind of along the same lines. We can kind of answer their question, and then we can go into a little bit of what we said to our other player a little bit too, and really kind of put the nail on this coffin, if you will. Okay. I think it'll help a lot of new players understand a lot of the aspects of D&D, and how a turn and action and time works. So this question is from the Giant in the Playground forum, and this is from Deep Blue Diver. It is a long question, so just bear with me for a minute.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. We kind of can skip some of the stuff in the beginning because he's kind of just talking.
Damn, already into the blah, blah, blahs.
Already into the blah, blah. He starts off kind of talking about the forum, so I can skip that part to get to the actual question.
Oh, okay.
So he says, this is something that I've been mulling over lately. How much of a character's turn should a casting spell occupy? How do you think it should vary depending for different types of spells or for different classes? When I started playing D&D, it was edition 3.5, and now I'm playing 5e. I got nothing against 4, I just never had the opportunity. And so I can't help comparing how they handle timing and combat. In 3.5, you had standard actions and full actions, and spells took that standard action, or 1 round, though most groups I played with just treated those like full round actions, and having to move or do something else could make a significant difference in 3.5, especially at higher levels, where a full attack gave you multiple strikes on an enemy. Basically, denying a player or monster their full action would have a significant impact on the flow of an encounter. Most direct damage spells, however, were only a standard action, since primary spellcasters like Wizard or Sorcerer preferred to be at range anyway, giving up our move to cast wasn't really a big deal. In 5e, by contrast, whether you move or don't move, or whatever other actions you take, all attacks and spells are basically just an action. And I feel like we've lost something when it comes to tactics and strategy, since you'll have your move and bonus regardless, even when you take into account things like disengage being added as a baseline option. But that's my 2 cents. And if most people prefer 5e set up at 3.5, I want to hear that. Plus, on top of all that, you have non-primary casters like bards, rangers, and paladins who may evaluate options for damage or utility different. And since some spells like summoning, buffing, debuffing, CC, healing, etc. may not compare as easily between primary and non-primary casters as damage, balancing magic can be as much as an art as science. But in the end, I'm looking to get some feedback on what sort of system people prefer and how they think spells should be balanced in terms of time in or out of combat, and how it relates to scaling, what sort of trade-offs there should be expending extra time to cast, complexity versus simplicity, etc. Whatever you feel is most important with this topic, lay it on me.
Okay. That was very long.
Yes, it was a long-worded... let me catch my breath here.
Yeah. It was well thought out. They provided good points in both regards to 3.5 and 5e. I do believe... I mean, we've talked about this before. 3.5 really seemed like it was a tactics and stats-based game.
Yeah, a lot more battle tactics.
Yeah, whereas 3.5 was really when you benefited from min-maxing and building your character stats first and then character second. And then 4 was mostly all role play. It was all, the story behind your character, what flavor can you add, what flavor can you change or twist and whatever. So, 3.5, I've never played, but I kind of like the idea of, certain spells are going to take more than just your action to do. Like, some of those things are going to eat up your whole turn, basically, just to cast this one thing because of what it does or what it is or what level it is. I like that because then it does propose that strategy base where, shit, if I want to cast this, 5th level fireball, I'm not going to be able to move this turn, so I better set myself up this turn to where I can do it next turn or something, But as 5e is the way 5e deals with it is a lot more basic. It's like he said, it's, everything is an action or a bonus action, and then you still have your movement. When it comes to that stuff, I think there's still some tactics that have to go into it. Obviously not as much as 3.5, but I believe there is some skill that is required to do it right or do it well. Mm-hmm. I think that 5e makes it a lot easier for you to do that, though. So one of the things they said was like, dealing with what is going to do more damage and what's going to be more opportune for you and your party to do. So like this kind of leads into the question that we had the debate about on Friday was that, if you have 2-weapon fighting and you're a Dragonborn and you have a breath weapon, can you still strike with your weapon, use your breath weapon, and then still have your bonus action to do another attack? We ended up ruling that, yes, breath weapon is a weapon, but the way we play is for 2-weapon fighting, it has to be a weapon strike, like a physical weapon that you strike with.
A melee weapon.
Yeah, a melee weapon that you strike with, and then you get the benefit of the 2 attacks per action, and then with 2-weapon fighting, you get your bonus action to do an offhand attack as well.
So, do you mind if I jump in and explain?
Yes.
A little bit?
Please do.
Okay, so basically how we ruled on that, how I'm going to tie this all in. So what we had said is fighters, and it also came up, because of her class, she got 2 attacks per action. And she was saying breath weapon is an attack. I should get 2 attacks, breath weapon being 1, and then my melee being another. Kind of the way I explained it to her is because of your class, you're so proficient with these melee weapons that you have to look at an action as a time frame. It's not an action in the sense of the word of you're moving and doing this thing. An action is a time frame. A bonus action is a shorter time frame. And then, of course, you have, your amount of movement you can do in a turn. And those 3 time spans add up to be a total turn. So what I kind of told her, because it says on their breath weapon takes 1 action. So 2 attacks per action just means that in that time frame, because of your class, you are so proficient with melee weapons, you have learned how to attack proficiently enough where you can, in the time it normally takes someone to do, like, say if you have a sword, the time it normally takes someone to do 1 sword slash, you're so proficient, you know that you can go down with that sword and then come back up in this way, in this, movement that is faster and more, efficient, so that you can actually get 2 strikes in the time it takes someone to get 1. But casting, or breath weapon, I know it's not really a cast, but an innate ability, but kind of same thing. It takes this amount of time to build up and do. So that time frame of being 1 action takes that full action part. Yes, you would still, and then have your bonus action and your movement. And I think it's kind of the same thing that I would say with this question is, I think that, an action being a time, they've kind of just simplified, I think, a lot into 5e versus the 3.5 to make it more free-flowing. So making all of the spells take kind of the same amount of time just makes it, one, easier for people to play and, cover, so that it's easier for a broader spectrum of people to play, but also it's more free-flowing where you still have a lot of other options on the table. Just because you want to cast, this fireball, it doesn't totally restrict you on everything else, so that you can still free flow and role play a little bit with it and not be so much into battle tactics. But I still think that that's not the case with everything in 5e. I feel there are a lot of druidic spells and other spells that the cast time is not 1 action. There's, casting times for some spells that are, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever casting time.
Yeah.
Usually it's not so much an attack cast.
More of a utility.
Utility, yeah.
So let me drop this analogy on you and see if this also helps with the description, because I kind of feel like we're losing Cameron here a little bit.
I'm learning a lot, actually. I'm sitting here looking confused, but I'm understanding.
Okay, so let me describe it this way. So your action, like you said, it's a section of time. It's the time allotted to do something. So the way I picture it is if this is a time slot, this is a rectangle time slot, right? So in this rectangle, you can fit a couple things. You can fit, a sword attack, like a great sword or like a halberd or something. That takes that 1 whole time slot, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you have 2 weapon fighting, you're proficient with 2 weapons, well, now your time slot for your weapon attack has gone down to 1 square, which is basically half of that rectangle, right? So now you can fit 2 of those squares inside this 1 rectangle, which gives you your 2 attacks per action. Well, if you have a breath weapon, that breath weapon takes up that whole time slot. It takes up that whole rectangle. So you can either slide in these 2 squares and have 2 sword attacks, or you can take this 1 rectangle of a breath weapon and drop it in there too. So you have options for how long that time slot is, but it depends on how you want to use it. So you couldn't take a breath weapon, which is the whole time slot, and a sword slash and try and put it in there too. It just wouldn't fit. Imagine this little kid block thing where this square goes in the square hole, the triangle goes in the triangle hole. So imagine it the rectangle is the long one, and you can fit squares in there. You can fit 2 squares side by side in the rectangle one, and those are your sword attacks. Well, the breath weapon comes up, and it's a full-ass rectangle, So you can't fit the full-ass rectangle and the little square in at the same time. It just, you won't get the benefit of both. And that's how I was picturing it when we were having that whole discussion the other night. And I was like, this makes sense to me, but I don't want to say it because it also makes it sound really childish and demeaning kind of. And I'm like, I'm not going to say it because you also said the really great example of, this is just a time period more than it is an action. Yeah. Or a verb,
Yeah.
Well, I believe we had touched on this subject too a couple weeks ago when we were talking. I believe it was a forum question that somebody had asked about if they could do one thing and then another thing. And we had agreed that obviously something like a spell cast is going to take concentration, focus, if you're going to really get into the literalness of if you were to be...
what it would be like to do that.
Yeah, how long you would have to take to, like, use a special attack in a way, rather than just pulling out a dagger or sword and being like, swipe or no swiping. Yeah. So essentially, yes, I definitely agree with that aspect of it, that, you know, you could do 2 types of actions, but they'd have to be appropriate in that sense.
Yeah.
So that's where, getting back to the question of the forum, you know, whether which one is better than the other. Personally, I like 5e style of it because, one, it's simplified and broadened for people, but it's not taking away those tactics. You still have options that you can do, and it just depends on how you want to use those options, but now just in a similar time frame of, like I said, do I want to stack this block and this block into this time frame, or do I want to do one thing that takes up this entire time frame? And yes, you still have bonus action and movement after that, but I think that almost increases battle tactics in a way, especially because you can rearrange those blocks any way you want. Nothing says I have to take my action first and then my bonus action and then do my movement. You could, you know,
bonus action, Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, bonus action, and then move, or bonus action, move, action, bonus action, move. You know, you can move those.
You could even split up your movement. You can do bonus action, half of your movement, action, and then the other half of your movement. Or you can do small movement, action, little, or like bigger movement, bonus action, and then regular. Like, you can do, there's a plethora of things you can do there. Like you said, the strategy is there. It's just however you want to use it.
Yeah, and so I was going to say, that's why I don't think the way 5e constructs it takes away from battle tactics. I think it's just a different way at looking at those battle tactics. So it's kind of like having, if you were, you know, playing or if you're like in an actual war, you know, okay, I have, you know, these catapults, or maybe like I just have cavalry, right? So if I just have cavalry, I know, you know, they can do these couple of different things. They're going to take time, but they're going to be effective. And I know I have to plan more because I only have this cavalry. Then you have this, you know, certain tactics that you really have to lay out in a very concise way in order to best utilize just your cavalry in order to beat this other army. Now, 5e, okay, and I have my smaller cavalry here, but I also have an infantry here, and I have my catapults here. Now, how I'm going to arrange those and where I'm going to put them and how I'm going to do it is also going to be a battle tactic that is going to either win or lose you that fight. So it's just a different way at looking at the battle tactics. You have more components to move around and shuffle and create your tactic versus just how I'm going to use this one tactic, basically.
I like the more versatility of it all.
Yeah, the versatility.
If I'm going to be honest here, I kind of like the idea of 3.5, where I really do like that forced sacrifice there. Like, I kind of like the sacrifice of, if you can throw this meaty fucking spell, I'm gonna take your movement. You know, like, if you're gonna throw this big damaging spell, or this big spell that's gonna be really beneficial to everyone, I think you should give up a little bit more than just your one little key piece of your turn there. Like, it just sounds like it'd be really interesting to try out, at least, of like, okay, from now on, one of the components of your spell casting is some of your movement. Or, you know, depending on, or like maybe even do it where you can pay some of your movement to increase something. So like, say you are going to cast Fireball. Well, Fireball is an AoE, which is area of effect. So it gives you a certain area that you're going to do this spell in. So Fireball is this giant, basically like miniature nuke of a fireball. And everyone inside that range, which is a 20-foot radius, everyone inside there has to make a dexterity save to try and jump out of the way. Well, if you pay some of your movement, I would say, like, just thinking off the top of my head, if you're willing to pay some of your movement, half your movement, I'll increase that DC by 2. If you're willing to give up all your movement and stay where you are, and stay at risk of, getting attacked or whatever the hell.
Because you're concentrating so hard on your spell, you're not moving. But because you're concentrating so hard, you can increase that spell. Yep.
The DC. Yeah. I kind of like that idea of, like, tit for tat. Like, if you want them to die by fire and you want it to be really hard for them to die by fire, or really easy for them to die by fire and hard to get away from it, and you give up your whole movement, then I'll increase your DC by 4. And if you want to give up your bonus action as well, then I'll increase it by another 1. So now your DC went up from, I think it's like 15 or 14. Yeah. And you stopped your movement, so now you made it up to a 20 or a 19, and then you gave up your bonus action, so now it's a DC 20 for them to escape that. Like, I think that could be really fun to create kind of like a pay culture, a pay to play, or a pay to win kind of culture of, like, I will pay my so-and-so to increase
Math is not your best suit,
essentially,
is it?
like a high-stakes gamble.
Mine?
14 plus 2, 16 plus 1, 17, but that's okay. Continue on.
Well, no, I said 15. I think it's 15.
Okay, 15 plus 2, 17.
I think the DC is 15, so if
15 plus 2, 17 plus 1, 18.
4, it would be 19. No, 15.
Plus 2.
I'm saying you gave up your... No, I said 15. You gave up your full movement, which I said I would give you a plus 4.
Oh, I thought you said plus 2. I thought you
19.
said plus 2. Okay.
No. 2 for half
gotcha.
movement.
Okay, fair.
So if you use your full movement, it's 19, you piece
of
shit.
So it's not your inability to do math. It's my inability to pay attention and have ADHD is the problem with this math problem. Okay, continue.
Yes.
Cameron was about to speak. I cut him off, and I'm an asshole. Go ahead, Cameron.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was just saying that I like that kind of aspect of it's more like a high-stakes gamble to where you're going to equivalent exchange. You're going to give up some, but you're going to get some, but you still have to roll, so there is a potential possibility that you just wasted your bonus action or your movement in turn. So now you're just stuck there.
Doing that with Fireball isn't really anything, because I think the range on Fireball is like 240 feet or some shit, where you can cast it within that range and you're good. So, I mean, giving up your movement if you're launching a fireball that far away isn't so bad, but, there's still like a give and take on it.
Bruce, with your method, what I'm going to do,
I'm
going to stand half a mile away, and I'm going to cast Meteor Shower, because that has a stupid range. I think it's like a...
Yeah, well, I think it is a half mile.
Yeah, I think that's why I said half mile. I'm pretty sure range on Meteor Shower is a half mile. So I'm going to stand a half mile away.
Uh-huh.
I'm giving up my movement because I'm a half mile away. Fuck my bonus action because I'm about to use Meteor Shower.
Yeah.
Let hell rain down upon thee.
Oh my god.
It could potentially be OP, like you said right there, though. Like there could be obvious exploits that you may have to be like certain things don't apply.
Meteor Shower is
Meteor Swarm. Meteor Swarm is a 9th level evocation. It takes 1 action. The range is 1 mile. The duration is instantaneous. It has to be a sorcerer or wizard. And let me see what the save is. Oh my god.
It's already an OP spell. It's a 9th level evocation. To get that, you have to basically be at level 20 sorcerer in order to be able to get that spell. So you're already basically a max level character. It's an OP spell to begin with. I was just throwing out an example and kind of being a dick about it.
Let me read this. Let me read this to you. Blazing orbs of fire plummet to the ground at 4 different points you can see within range. Each creature in a 40-foot radius sphere centered on each point you choose must make a dexterity saving throw. The sphere spreads around corners. A creature takes 20d6 fire damage and 20d6 bludgeoning damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. A creature in the area of more than 1 fiery burst is affected only once. The spell damages objects in the area, ignites flammable objects that aren't being worn or carried. Holy shit. Of all the ones to say, that is the most fucked up one.
It's the most OP spell regardless, so that's why I threw it out there.
40d6 of damage between the 2 different
types.
types.
And it was how big of a sphere? A 40-foot, right?
40-foot sphere.
But each one has a 40-foot sphere. And how many of those spheres do you get?
4.
So if you align them correctly, you basically have 160 feet of sphere that you can just drop bombs on.
Jesus. And the DC, it doesn't say what it is because I think it has to be your spell save DC, which is normally 8 plus whatever your spell casting modifier is.
But at that high of a level, it's going to be crazy high.
Yeah, and then if you give up your movement and all that stuff. But if you decided to do that shit, like, fuck it.
Fuck it.
It's already been set, so go ahead.
So,
if you're able to cast that at that point, everyone's fucked anyways.
I think we're getting out there on time. We should probably... I had one more question that we could go over, but I will save it for next time, and we will call this one done.
Sounds good to me. So a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, thank you, Cameron, for joining us again as I'm just going to call you co-host at this point. You've done 3 in a row.
Oh,
so
no.
You're co-host,
Well.
You're no longer a guest. You're now required to be here, so sorry.
Yes.
Thank you and sorry.
I will continue to be here.
Thank you to all our listeners and all those of you who are sharing the podcast. I actually received a wonderful message today from Bart K. I just want to make sure I got that right. Stand by. Bart K, I believe, sent us a message asking about some content we did back in the early days, back in like the first 2 episodes. And he was asking for
the links on the one-shots.
That I combined to make my first ever one-shot, and he wants to run his first game using those same kind of plugins. So I was able to go find those for him and email them. If more of you guys are interested in that, please comment on the page somewhere or send us a message, and we will make those links public, and you guys can go ahead and use those. I may do it anyways, but we'll see.
Any questions you have, if you any questions on anything we've said in any of the podcasts, any questions that just pop into your brain and you want another opinion on, anything you've been mulling over that you want to kind of have, you want to kind of lay out and see how we think it would play out,
or maybe see if someone can poke holes in it, or find where your the gap in your armor is, or kind of let you know how they think it would play out.
Let us know. You can
shoot those our way.
Hit us up and slide into our DMs. You can do that on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can email us, email the DMs at gmail.com. So lots of ways to get a hold of us. Please do so if you have any questions.
Follow us on socials and all that good stuff. As always, thank you, Carter, for our intro. We appreciate you. And now we'll get to our little quips that we do at the end of the show. Trevor, you are the initiative Jesus, and you have to go first now.
Okay.
You're first at the cross.
All right. Hey, boyos. What is a cleric's favorite hot drink? Divinity.
No. I mean, you're right, it is, but I don't want to.
Like T-E-A-T, but it's Divinity.
Oh, no. It's even funnier now that you explained it. Damn it.
You peed a little bit. It's okay.
So, mine is kind of like a funny little thing here. It is a wizard leaning over to the barbarian and explaining to him what is going on with the druid and what he turned into in this kind of battle. And so he leans over to the barbarian and he says, you see here, he's turned into an alligator, and some alligators can grow up to 15 feet. And the barbarian leans over and says, but most only have 4, right?
God damn it. God
Get
damn
it? Grow up to 15 feet, but most only have 4.
Yeah, I get it.
It's bad, and I apologize.
All right, new co-host Cameron, what do you got up your sleeve? Your bright orange sleeve.
Well, I always try to make mine food related, as I am a cook. So, what do you call a magician or a mage with a recipe book? A sorcerer.
God damn it.
That was good.
It was good.
It's bad. I know.
All right, guys. So, as always, fare thee well and adventure onward.
Spice.